Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Episode 149, Aaron. We're pushing 150 here, and we're nearing the end of 2023 at the time of this recording, and we have an open commentary today as we near the end of the year. We're talking what's going on in the business world, what's going on in the economics, and what's going on with politics as we near the end of 2023 and get into what I think, Aaron, I don't know how you want to take this prediction, but 2024, I think, might be the most tumultuous, am I saying that right? The most tumultuous year that maybe I've ever seen in my lifetime as we head into an election cycle. That has a big effect on business, the stock market, interest rates. We've got wars going on right now. We've got to be prepared for this stuff. We're going to unpack it all today. I've got a list of really what's going on. I follow these three items pretty well. As you know, we're always in touch with the business world and obviously economics tied to the business world. But then there's a big political sideshow going on right now, and there's more political overreach than there's ever been. There's also more divide than there's ever been. And there's also an interesting candidate pool that we haven't seen in a long time as well. So we've got some moving parts here, and we speak to you from a business owner and a sales professional first. But if you've seen the show for a long time, we also walk that back into other areas of life that matter as well to your business long term. So we'll go in a couple different directions here today. How about that?
Yeah, I love it. You know what? It keeps it interesting for us, and it keeps it interesting for the people who listen.
It does. It does. So where do we begin? Let's talk business first. Let's then pivot to what's going on economically, and let's then pivot into how that ties to politics. So first off, I think the biggest buzz story, and we can talk about positive and negative on
Sure.
all of this, right?
Yeah.
Is the artificial intelligence AI story. You know, because you know me well, that I have a love-hate sort of very skeptical, concerned approach when it comes to AI. But yet I'm seeing the productivity and efficiency benefits with AI as well. In fact, we just unleashed a whole AI suite into our software platform, Pipeline Pro. So now our users can use AI tools to write quicker, come up with ideas, have content created for you. Like all those chat GPT features that we see that people love so much. We've built that into our software. I'm sure, Aaron, in your agency, there's people that you're working with in the agency or even clients that are using AI tools to move quicker in business, right? To give them ideas, help them with writing. There's a lot of good that can be had. My concern is it's moving way too fast. I get really concerned when it takes on a religious type connotation. And that's what's happening right now, where it's almost like this has to happen. You need to adopt this or you'll be left behind. You're a bad person if you don't adopt AI. Problem I have with AI, and I'll let you unpack my good and bad, right? Talked about the productivity benefits. But the bad part about it is I don't like how a lot of elements of society now are really almost, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, almost thinking for you. Like this is a tool that can eventually think for you. I think the invalidation of independent thinking and more of the validation of, hey, AI can think for you. Like it can already write for you. Hey, but why don't we make it think for you? And I think it opens the door to becoming a very interesting propaganda machine that I think will slip into the political environment in 2024. My concern is because it's so pervasive now. Why now? Like, why not 2 years ago? Why not? It's been around. But leading into the election and with the election meddling we saw in the U.S. in 2020, I'm just concerned that AI has too much power to reshape the way people think and feel, and that's very dangerous. And that's by the way, that comes from Elon Musk, who just went to the biggest AI summit in the world to talk to some of the AI adopters, guys from Microsoft, guys from Twitter. You know, his company, he's representing Twitter and X now. A couple people from the UN. They're like, let's make sure this doesn't get out of control, right? So there's two things happening there in my view.
So first things first, I just want to do a quick tech check, and it's just because what I see on my side. Are you sharing your screen on your side? Because I can see your calendar in the screen, but it just might.
Oh no, only you see that, brother. We're
Okay.
we're not doing a live webinar.
Just want to do that quick tech check for our viewers, right?
No, I'm watching the show on my phone right now, man. Check it out.
Beautiful.
We look pretty good.
All right, fantastic. Okay. So here is my take on AI. Is first and foremost, many things in this world can be used as a tool or a weapon.
Well said.
AI is no different. The second thing I will say on that is that there's an old saying in my world that marketers ruin everything. And I think that's part of what's happening right now with AI, because every person that, what I say doesn't really have a real business right now is out there capitalizing on the buzz around AI and selling you, scaring you, pushing you down this AI train because it's trendy, it's fashionable. I can't tell you how many, agencies and marketers and education companies I've talked to.
You're starting to see they slip it into their marketing messaging now. Use this new AI-driven agency, or we're an AI-driven this. Or, Aaron, I'm going to buy golf clubs the other day, and I'm like, AI manufactured Callaway Paradigm Golf. What does AI have to do with the golf club manufacturing? Please tell me. Does that mean like a person didn't make it and a machine did? Because I don't know how this transfers to golf, but you see my point.
This reminds me a lot of a couple of different scenarios with regards to AI. Don't you remember, like, for the longest time, .com, everything was .com, even if it wasn't.
You and I were there. You and I are internet pioneers. We were there before Google, Facebook, and video even was a thought, right? We've been there.
And so you throw .com on anything, all of a sudden it's got more valuation. And you can go through.
That's a good analogy.
You can go through this, right? Then it was everything crypto, right? And you saw all the marketers move to crypto, and then you saw everybody move to NFTs, and everything was NFTs, right? Now it's the AI time. So
the difference, let me stop you. The difference right there with AI, though, is, Aaron, is that when it makes its way into massive Fortune 500 publicly traded companies, and they're talking about it on the news every day, it's more like the .com than the other things you mentioned, because
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's just that everybody I'm talking to right now, whatever they're creating, they're trying to find a way to slip AI into
100%.
either the messaging or the
everywhere I turn, man.
It's the buzzword of today. So marketers ruin everything. Let's just say that's what's happening.
That sounds like a Seth Godin book.
Yeah.
He always, like a great marketing mind, and he always wrote these books like, I don't know, like a marketer would ruin. This is one on my shelf over here. I can't find it right now, but it speaks to that too. Something like The Purple Cow or what, I don't know. Yep. What, he's got a whole series.
So let's just say that first off, it's just a buzzword. So the majority of people are just jumping on it because it's somehow benefiting them, or they believe it's benefiting them in what they're selling. Sure. And we've seen it happen many, many times. And then eventually people become annoyed by it and then become immune to it, and it stops working. And then all of a sudden you see all of the noise die down with regards to the marketing side of it. So that's my first take on AI. But let's talk about, it can be a tool or it can be a weapon. I have had many conversations, including just one yesterday, big real estate company, education, buy and sell platform, 3 pillars in their business, uses your platform from a tech stack standpoint. And he basically said, in the last year, we've taken our staff down from 32 to 13.
Wow. And he attributes that to our technology and
yes.
AI, or
AI and your technology.
Okay,
he's a
good.
big,
That's great to hear.
He's German, right? And he laughed because I said, well, of course you have, because you're German and Germans are all about efficiency. And he said, everybody always says that. I don't know if that's true, but he's German.
I think it's the BMW and the Mercedes stigma.
Must be, right? So he said, we looked at every single flow of communication, even to the point now where we've got a chat bot that's so built out from an AI standpoint that we don't even use live salespeople anymore, to automating all of our real estate transactions and title and search and valuation, and everything's tapped into AI at this point. And we've basically eliminated 66% of our staff. So we're much leaner, we're much more profitable, and our goal is to keep pushing that over the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. And he said, I believe that the majority of industries will either adapt to the ability to combine tech and AI over the next 3 years, or they'll lose, because those that will have way more money for marketing. They'll have way more resources to deploy, and the other companies won't, and they'll just get blown out. Because as you and I both know, he who can spend the most amount of money to acquire a customer is always going to win. So if you reduce unnecessary overhead by 66% by putting in combinations of AI and automations and tech, you're going to have more money for marketing. It always comes back to do you have more money for marketing, right?
Can you buy more customers? Yeah.
And so this tool is really, really powerful if used in the right way for businesses to free up capital for more marketing, more awareness, more expansion.
Sure.
Now, the flip side of that is what you're talking about, which is
does it go too far is the question.
It will go too far.
And it will.
In many cases, it's already gone too far. Because what AI can do in many cases, especially on the marketing side, is it can compile all this data and it can see what makes people tick and then hammer them with the things that make people tick, which often, and you and I both know this, fear-based marketing outperforms opportunity-based
marketing. Well, avoiding
marketing.
pain is a bigger driver than gaining pleasure, right? It isn't
Absolutely.
necessarily fear-based. It's just helping someone avoid pain might be a little bit more of a driver than helping them gain pleasure on this day.
And the funny thing is this has been happening for a couple of years. We know so because it had a different term. It was called algorithm. That's AI.
Yeah.
So when you look at, an Instagram or a YouTube or a Facebook or a Google or whatever, they're showing you what they believe you want to see the most, whether it's content.
Very true. Good point.
Ads.
We've been talking about that on the show for a long time, right? The retargeting, the targeting based on interest and demographic. That's AI on their side, right?
And they now know what words, what images are going to disrupt you, shock you, make you take action. And now they're manipulating you at a very, very high level from a business sense to make money, right? And I don't blame them for doing so. But what happens when that moves beyond business into politics, for example, where we're now all being manipulated on information that may or may not even be true, but they know it's going to work, so they're going to use AI to constantly be creating friction or the response they want or whatever. That's where it's going to become a weapon, unfortunately, if it hasn't.
Yeah, and we'll head to politics in topic 3. We're on business and AI, and that was a really good breakdown and a lot of great analogies you gave right there. But yes, I get concerned with anything that starts to remove too much human from the process, right? I have a huge issue. I'm a health and wellness guy, so I have a huge issue right now with really the same big political and world leaders getting too involved with environment and climate and all this stuff, because what they're doing is they're really upending a lot of nature in farming and regenerative farming and the use of chemicals and all this. So they always tend to focus on the wrong things, and then they virtue signal like they're focusing on the right things. So my concern with AI is that it goes too far also, and it starts basically planting thought. And it starts basically telling people that, hey, you don't have to think anymore. We got you. We'll think for you. Right? It was almost like, and it's the same big names like the Bill Gateses of the world and the Charles Schwabs of the world, the World Economic Forum guys. The messaging is always coming from the WHO. It's really interesting. The messaging is always coming from there. And they did this with COVID. Don't worry. Don't think. Don't look at any other medicine. Don't even think about getting healthy. Don't worry if you're fat and overweight and obese, and that's 90% of cases. We've got the one and only modality medicine for you, and everything else is invalidated. And that's a religion now and a cult. And it gets a little religious and culty. I'm glad Elon Musk has the integrity, love him or hate him, to actually say, I'm part of the development of AI. I'm one of the core guys that is developing AI, and I've never been more concerned for humanity. He doesn't have to say that, because let me tell you something. Bill Gates and Charles Schwab, they don't give a shit about humanity. They will ruin humanity for their agendas. At least Musk is saying, let's slow it all down. I want to meet with the right people. I'm concerned for humanity. It might become like a think for you propaganda tool, which I've been concerned about for a long time. So you got to really be careful who you're listening to when it comes to this as well. And I'm really glad Musk has taken that concerning stance as one of the richest men in the world.
Well, I was talking to a really good friend of mine at a charity event last night.
Is that the guy you told me about earlier that likes my glasses?
Yeah, the one who loves your glasses so much. Maybe he'll watch this.
We're being sarcastic, actually. He doesn't like my glasses at all, actually.
So,
But the fact that he mentioned my glasses to you at a charity event in the Cayman Islands just goes to show that there's a lot of people around the world watching the show. I'm absolutely happy to hear that.
and the power of having your own show. You never know who's watching, right?
Exactly. And as I told you before, I spoke at an event in Miami with 200-300 agency owners, and like 3 people came up to me and said, "Where the hell are your glasses? You need your glasses. I watch your show." So love them or hate it. Some of you love them, some of you hate them, but I digress.
So going back to his point, we were talking about him raising his kids. So I have to kind of give you context around this guy. First off, he's originally from Canada, hockey player, down to earth, farm boy mentality. He's a good, solid human being. Came to the Cayman Islands, worked in the bar scene like I did when we were kids, ended up opening a restaurant, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12. I don't know how many he's got now. Buying commercial real estate. He's really taken his life to the next level by taking personal responsibility. He's the only black belt in jiu-jitsu in the Cayman Islands, which goes to show you how much he pays attention to his body, fitness, etc. So he's like us. And then he went into the family side, which is like us, where he's got a new son, and he's just pounding home with his son. Critical thinking. Do not be manipulated by what people tell you. Think critically, which we talk about.
Question everything.
Be
skeptical.
Right. And it ties into what you're saying right now, is if we look back in the history of mankind, at every event that has been potentially world shifting or cataclysmic, there's always the same variable that somehow comes into play. And it's some person, some organization, some government saying, don't think, we got you.
Don't worry about it. You don't have to think about anything because we can think for you. And by the way, it's for your own good.
So every time
it's so obvious. With all this media today, Aaron, it used to not be obvious because we only had radio and TV.
Mm-hmm.
But with radio, TV, internet, social, podcasting, how are people still so fooled? It's incredible with all this media. You don't have a past today. You had a past when we were just a radio, TV culture. You don't have a past today.
No,
you're just clueless.
And it allows me to tie the loop in my thought here. It's a long way to get to my point.
I cut you off a bunch of times. My bad.
It's okay. It is anytime there's something introduced into the world where the context is potentially we can think for you, you don't have to think anymore. It has never shown historically to be a good thing.
I can tell you where it leads to. It leads to 2 places. It leads to socialism, and if it's not contained, it leads to communism every single time.
And I think you could make a valid argument around that. So when we're looking at AI as a race, and we're starting to incorporate it in, again, you can use it. It can be a tool or it can be a weapon. So you constantly have to say which team am I on right now? If I'm putting all of these things in place to automate a bunch of stuff, to increase my profitability,
productivity, efficiency, all of it,
to force everybody who's in my company to be better, to prove more value, because if they don't, they're going to be siloed. Like if you're using it for that purpose, it's a great tool. But you have to be educating yourself, your kids, your family to remember that it is never okay to start letting someone else or something else start to think for you, because that has a track record historically of an absolute disaster.
That's exactly right, man. That's exactly the concern. And again, to me, what is the tip-off of what you just said? The tip-off is this, and it's always stood the test of time. When the masses start getting on board something, and they start talking about it like it's a religion, that should be the first sign that, slow down, I now need to go look at every other angle now, because when something becomes a religion without proof of concept, again, AI, right? COVID-19 vaccines, emergency use, experiments, the climate conversation, a lot of stuff they're pushing without proof of concept, and most important, without thinking about the future damage to humanity. That's the one that gets me the most. This is why we're such big fans, and we'll come back to this later in the show when it comes to politics, is we're huge fans of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because he's the only independent candidate who is talking to these things and saying, we have to focus on humanity first, not big companies, big corporations, big movements, and big religions that don't have proof of concept and don't think long-term about the potential damage. This is really an interesting void that I'm seeing today, is the just the lack of thought of what is the potential long-term damage to our children, to our people, to our country, to humanity. We're just like throwing daggers at everything. This is like Hail Mary passes all day long. Everybody's in the present moment. But again, back to Musk, what does this look like long term? To your point, does it start to invalidate the thought of our young people? Oh boy, they would love that. They would love that. Wouldn't they love that?
Great.
You can control a whole society if they can't think, right?
Or more
different conversation for a different day. But this is just psychology. We just happen to be in the psychology business at the end of the day, right? People don't really connect business owners and guys like us who own companies and do a lot of high level strategy consulting to psychology, but it's all psychology, which means we spot this stuff very differently than most.
Well, and when we talk about the potential transition that could happen with AI, where people stop thinking, it won't be an overnight thing.
No, everything's a gradual, slow roll.
It's a gradual chipping away
to your term,
the system, and then all of a sudden, 10 years in, 20 years in, whatever it is, the society has changed and has become the norm, and now what you end up just being is, another battery to power the matrix.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're not thinking, you're not pushing, you're not questioning. Here's
another tip off is when something starts out as a tool or a device to make your life better. This is how they start. It becomes easy to adopt. So let's take AI. We're talking about AI, right? We could parlay this to the internet, which we know has, what would we do without it? But yet, let's look at the damage that it's causing to kids with social media now, right?
And a weapon.
Tool and a weapon, as you said, right? But things always start off as a really, oh my God, this is making my life amazing. So we quickly buy in, we quickly get a result. It quickly enhances our lifestyle, and now the door is wide open to turn it into a weapon if it gets that far, to your point. So it'll always start off as a for the good of humankind, for the good of mankind, convenience, save time. AI should be part of running your whole household. You can have smart this and smart that. But then again, Aaron, what are we not thinking about when it comes to those devices? I won't get off on a tangent on devices. I'm doing a lot of research right now on just the EMF radiation coming off these devices, especially with my kids, right? I'm looking at some technology right now that will dumb and die down some of the EMF in your house. I'm doing some research on that. But again, nobody's talking about that.
Well, and
because they want the technology now, but we're not thinking about the long-term health benefits to humanity.
And you can see that this is things, there's never anything new, that it repeats itself all the time, right? Yeah. Every time something's introduced as a convenience, it becomes mainstream very quickly, and people depend on it very quickly. You can go back as far as first was the printing press, then it was radio,
TV,
then it was television, then it was the internet, then it was social media. The crypto is trying to still break into that, and
I think it is. Yeah, you're right.
And then now we got AI. And there you can have conversations around them and have really strong arguments how they are great tools, because they've been amazing tools. I mean, the idea that somebody in Afghanistan can get access to a laptop and have the same level of education as somebody in California,
outstanding,
was world changing when that happened. World changing. It gave this opportunity to millions and millions of people that never had access to information and education in their life. An amazing tool for humanity. But also now everybody's got this thing in their hand or in front of them that they can be manipulated with because it's a communication portal.
I see people walking their dogs like this.
Right? Exactly.
5-minute dog walk. You have dogs. I don't have dogs, but I see dogs in my neighborhood and I'm like, you can't possibly tell me that you're walking your dog like this right now. It's a 5-minute walk. That poor dog.
Or worse, driving your car.
Why would you even bring it outside of your house? I see these kids in mine. There's a kid that lives next door to me. He's probably 11, 12.
Right.
He's never walked the dog without a phone in his left hand. But the dog walk is 5 minutes.
But it's supposed to be
5 minutes.
It's supposed to be a tool. Can you imagine somebody walking around walking the dog with a hammer in their hand every single day? You'd say, why do you have a hammer in your hand every single day? Well, it's a tool. I might need it. You're insane.
Oh my God.
Right? But you'll do it with a phone.
I know.
Because it's addictive, and the businesses that are there want you to be addicted to it because it benefits their bottom line. You just have to be critical thinking about it.
Exactly, man. And last thing I'll say is even the critical thinking, the questioning of what we're talking about is invalidated and actually put down today. The new trend in America, at least, you're in the Cayman Islands, but you are, well, North American, because Canadian is connected to Cayman, and really North America. Well, I used to say North America was I used to say Canada and America were essentially in parity because it's a North American continent, but Canada's not even anything like America anymore. It's gone. I mean, I think you've surpassed socialism with Trudeau up there, and you're on the doorstep of a communist culture. And there's not many Canadians that will disagree, except the ones that are really, really on cloud nine, and that's like 20%. I think it might even be lower. I speak to a lot of Canadians. You're a Canadian. I know a lot of Canadians. They are living in the ultimate state of tyranny right now under Trudeau. It is amazing to watch, but that's a different story, right? What I was trying to say here was you can't let yourself be invalidated because you have to be able to play the middle. I think the takeaway on the AI thing is balance. The takeaway with kids and social media, balance. The takeaway with phones and kids, balance. You know how pissed off my daughter is at me right now? She's 9 years old, Aaron. You know my daughter. You've known her since she was 2 years old. She calls you Parky. She loves you. We bought her a flip phone. Have you seen these flip phones, man?
Yeah, my wife was considering.
They're an antique. It's amazing. These are like the phones I used in high school. I'm 50. A flip phone. It's $1. The phone cost $1. It's a flip phone. She's pissed because her friends have iPhones. I'm fighting it as long as I can because once that phone becomes a computer, we tip the balance. The balance gets tipped. So the takeaway on the AI thing is awesome. Use it as a tool in your business. Awesome for efficiency and productivity. Phenomenal opportunity. But if it starts bleeding into culture, if it starts telling you how to think, if it starts dovetailing as a propaganda machine, which I'm starting to see, and I get really concerned leading up to the elections in 2024, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, that's a problem because we need to be able to think for ourselves, not be told how to think and how to feel. That's an even bigger thing.
Maybe more importantly, because we're, whether we want to admit it or not, we're entering the second half of our life cycle.
Oh, yeah.
More importantly, it's having those communications with your kids and making sure that they're aware of it and they're thinking through the lens of, tool or weapon.
Right.
And not getting slowly chipped away at over the next 10 to 20 years where they just become mushrooms that just, do nothing, think nothing, impact nothing.
I get so concerned about that generation, which is why I'm so vocal about it. But let's pivot to the third topic here. We've got 3 here today in my notes. So let's go to economics. So if you jumped in here late, we're doing a little 2023 year-end commentary. First topic was business. AI tends to be here, the biggest talking point. Economics, I think the biggest talking point right now that we're seeing economically, Aaron, as we almost jump into 2024 is interest rates. They think I'm a big CNBC and Fox Business News watcher. I like to know what's going on with companies and economics and stocks and interest rates. There are some channels out there that talk about just business, which is kind of cool. Interest rates. They seem to think that interest rates maybe have the raising cycle in America has stopped, which gives a lot of hope to business confidence, consumer confidence, and the fact that maybe people are feeling better about putting money to work. You talked about this in the beginning, how you've seen a lot of people almost on strike right now in business, not wanting to put money to work. We see it. My sales guys see it. I'm always trying to, as a business owner, and this is probably a good piece of advice to you as a business owner, if you have a sales team that you oversee, having been in sales my whole life, 25 plus years, and now overseeing sales teams, I'm always trying to put as many things in place to rig the deck in favor of my sales team. How do we get them more appointments? Are there different marketing initiatives we can do? Can we run a promotion? Can we launch a new product? I always have missiles dropping to get my guys more deal flow, right? That's a business owner thinking because I'm a former salesperson, not a business owner just saying, well, I just hope my guys sell more stuff, right? So that's a good sign. I think the stock market has responded by being up something like 5 or 6 or 7 days in a row. So that's the story going into 2024. Not a lot to talk about there, but I think we all probably hope that interest rates aren't going to continue to go up because inflation is a problem.
Well, and I can see it in America. I can see it in Canada. I can see it in the Cayman Islands. It's really interesting to watch economically in the Cayman Islands because it's so small. I mean, you know this. There's
like I say, you guys are in a bubble. It's hard to even compare.
Right. There's 60,000 people here. But what's interesting about the Cayman Islands is that there's also $1 trillion parked here in the bank accounts, right? So it is a hedge fund, offshore banking capital, very wealthy, very educated group of people. And as a result, because it's such a small island, the real estate, specifically the higher end real estate, sort of north of 1 million to 4 million. There's definitely 20 and 30 and $40 million houses here, but let's talk about the 1 million to 4 million. You can see on this island historically, when there's been cataclysmic economic events, the increase of the pricing on real estate, unlike the United States and Canada, it doesn't drop. You don't see this like down it goes and then
sort
it
of levels out, right?
It just levels out and it just stays stagnant for a while. And we can see on the island that from the peak during the helicopter money COVID time where everything was going through the roof, like it was, and probably.
But you guys in that part of the world, you didn't get the bailout money that Americans got, though, right? Does the government in other parts of the world, especially in a small little jurisdiction like that, they don't really do stuff like that.
There's a lot of people, companies, etc., that are impacted by the policies of the United States that have more money in their pocket or whatever. So whatever happens there always has an impact here. But anyways, my point is we can see from the peaks, right? It came down a little bit and then it just leveled off. And all the conversation right now is around, I'll wait until the money's cheaper, before I move forward. Business acquisitions, same kind of thing. I'll wait.
Lending from banks, drying up.
I'm not taking a credit line for $1 million at 9% or whatever it is. I'm not getting a new mortgage at 9%. Like I just don't. Right. I don't care enough to do it right now. And what people don't realize is that almost every developed nation is a credit and real estate driven economy. So if houses are being built, if people are moving, if people are trying to level up, if people are trying to increase their marketing spends in their business or acquisitions in business or whatever, the whole economy moves. The moment that you make it money too expensive, none of those things happen and everything becomes stagnant and then it becomes a problem.
And that's where we are.
And that's where we're at. So
the fact that if rates are going to maybe start to plateau out, that might give people a little bit of hope going into the new year.
It will give people a little bit of hope. And I do think some of it is driven by the pressure of the current administration to try and get votes, right? American people.
I'm sure they'll be lowering rates leading up to the election. They'll rig that for sure.
Of course, I would if I was in that administration.
Well, you shouldn't say I would. You only would if the economic environment dictated lowering rates, not because you want to get more votes. See, that's how this administration operates. They only operate on either spite or votes.
I want to be clear on that. I say I would.
But you're not the
Because I would.
Because I'd want to rig the deck, right?
I'm putting myself in the position of if I actually want to be a politician, which I don't, because I think all politicians are corrupt and insane. But if I wanted to go into that world to win, this is what I would do. But I would never become a politician because I think they're all corrupt and insane.
Yeah.
So
when I launched my independent political career in 2024, are we done? Like, is our relationship over?
No, I'm just going to hold you accountable to not become a lunatic, right?
Which is why I'll probably stay an independent because I can play the middle, which is smart.
That's what you see in the independents. I can't remember who quoted it, but it was a really good quote. They said something along the lines of the moment that politics went from a way of giving back to a career, the whole game was over.
Well said.
And if you look back,
it's an establishment now. Yeah.
I can't remember if it was Aristotle or Socrates. They said something along the lines of it's every man's obligation at the end of their lifetime to get involved in
serve public service.
To public service, to give back for what they were able to benefit from society.
Yeah.
So it started off as this way to give back.
And then what? Everything you said in the beginning about AI. It spun out of control because there wasn't a balance.
Now it's a career. Now it's a game of staying in office. Now it's in a game of alignments and big corporate partnerships and all of these things.
If you look at the careers in America, I don't know if you know this. I'm studying this pretty closely as of late because it matters so much now. both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican.
Absolutely.
You look at people that are career politicians. You look at like a Nancy Pelosi, who's like 82, you know, a Democrat for 40 years. You look at somebody like Nikki Haley, who's running for president, doing well. You look at some of these, you look at Anthony Fauci.
Clinton.
These people are public servants that made about $200,000 a year W-2 salary their whole lives, 10 years, 15, 20 years in service. $8 million, $10 million, $20 million net worths. Nobody knows why.
Weird.
It's weird, and it's all of them. It isn't like a few of them. It's all of them. And what a lot of people don't know, and I've heard this from politicians who've been in the game. I have very good connections. You and I used to speak on stages doing financial education events. We had people coming in from all over the world that were some really brilliant minds when it comes to economists and thought leaders in the space. When you see these big bills getting passed, $6 billion packages to Ukraine, $4 billion infrastructure packages, you know that a bunch of that money finds its way right back to the politicians' LLCs and consulting companies almost every time. That money's never audited. These aren't publicly traded companies. You couldn't pull that off if you were Microsoft publicly traded, because all that money is publicly, you can view all those transactions publicly. But this money always finds its way back to politicians. They're trading in the stock market. They're hearing things. They're buying options ahead of time. I mean, you know, there's insider trading. There's consulting companies. There's kickbacks. You heard what Vivek said on stage at the Republican debate to Nikki Haley?
Yep.
He goes, Nikki Haley, you were dead broke and bankrupt when you left office in 2000 whatever, and now you have a net worth of $8 million because you've been in bed with Boeing and all these different companies, and you've been getting kickbacks all your life, and she can't respond to it. She won't even deny it.
Nope.
I don't know if it's wrong or illegal, but it does seem like there's a lot of conflicts of interest.
I think I read something the other day that Nancy Pelosi's husband must be the greatest hedge fund management or investor in the history of mankind.
So you know who these people are then.
Their returns are beating the greatest financial minds in history for the last 20 years.
Trading. I mean, it's insider trading. People go to jail for this. You can't be trading ahead of this news. You shouldn't even be able to participate in certain things when you're in public office. But let's pivot. Let's pivot to politics, because we talked about, I think we had a great conversation about biggest business trend as we near the end of the year, AI, and how to play that. Economically, interest rates. I think you might have had a final point on maybe consumer confidence, right?
Yeah, I do have one on consumer confidence, because I can only look at what I see it's not that I can only look in my own business. I just prefer to look in my own business, because as an agency, we manage the marketing and we can see the sales numbers for, 40 to 50 clients at any given time.
It's a great portfolio of viewing for you.
Right. I can see yours. I can see how you're performing. I can see all of these companies.
By the way, you guys are performing absolutely ridiculous for me, as always.
Thanks.
I mean,
I appreciate that.
It's really impressive.
Thank you.
For those of you that, so Aaron's agency, 7 Mile Media, which is a large international, really more of a boutique Mercedes-Benz type agency, not for somebody who's spending $50 a day on Facebook, but for somebody who's spending at least $25,000 a month minimum on ad spend. I mean, 3-4 years running our traffic, just constantly acquiring customers at 2-3x less than every single competitor in my space, like clockwork. I'm expecting to wake up one day to find like the whole thing shut down, because I don't know how it could have even gone this long. Like, how are they so good for so long? So big plug to you and your agency today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So to continue on that thought, here are the trends that we saw this year. So summer was the single biggest drop in sales that we've seen in the last 3+ years. Yep. We saw almost across the board a 25% reduction in conversions in sales over the summer. And in talking to other people in the industry, they said that it was pretty accurate. They saw it as well. So we feel like this was the first year that everybody could actually travel restriction-free and no drama. And I was in Europe twice this summer. You were in Europe this summer. I mean, I've never seen so many people.
It was out of control.
The population.
And all the travel agents said it. They've never seen anything like that kind of volume.
Right. So that actually reinforces the point. I didn't know that you'd had that conversation with travel agents.
Mm-hmm, I did.
My opinion is all the buyers said, I'm finally able to go on vacation with my family. I'm out. And there was just no buyers in the inventory. So it dropped down by 25%.
There's nobody around to buy.
Nobody around. I wasn't around. You weren't around.
Yeah.
Travel agents said no one was around. So we kind of looked at that and said, okay, it's just a blip. It'll come back in September and October like it always does. And it did a little bit, but not to the degree that I've seen historically. You know, we would usually expect it to come back up to that 100% ratio for September, October, then start to dip towards Thanksgiving. Nah, it came up to like 90%. It didn't have the same bounce back. And then now coming through Thanksgiving in the US, we're seeing this like plummet off a cliff in many
coming
industries.
Into the holidays too a little bit, right?
Not every industry, but more industries with a deeper trough than we have ever seen during the holidays. And my hypothesis is that this has been a very wild year. It's been a wild year economically, financially, credit, inflation, government regulation, 2 wars, finally being able to travel and getting the COVID nonsense behind us. It's a lot of stuff to pack into a 12-month time frame. And I feel like all of these elements have actually made the business owners or the buyers pull back earlier than they ever have before, including me. I told you next Wednesday, I'm pulling the plug till January 2nd. I'm going to go play with my family. I'm going to do Christmas. I'm going to be present.
Why don't you fly up here and we can play golf?
Oh, hey, playing golf?
We'll talk about it.
I'm all for it.
We'll talk
all
about
for it. Doing Zoom calls and working on projects, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't want to look at the computer for a little while either.
I think that I am a reflection of what I'm seeing in the marketplace right now, where everybody's just going to stop and take a breath and not make buying decisions. And they're going to come out in January with a completely new plan, refreshed, to attack the new year. And I actually think you're going to see a big spike.
Good.
Now, I know that you believe that the election cycle could negatively impact that. It's possible. I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see. But from what I can see mathematically right now, this is what's happening. And so if you're experiencing that, you're not abnormal. How you would potentially combat that, because people always say, well, how do I combat that? Is make sure that your marketing is still staying in front of people through the holidays, even if it's at a reduced budget. So you still stay top of mind so that when they make their big plans and their New Year's resolutions and their decisions in January, you're not having to creep back into them as somebody who's relevant. You're there top of mind. And amateur businesses, they shut their marketing off in times where there's a lull in buying. You know, there's always a lull in buying Thanksgiving, Christmas, sure, July 4th, you know, summer a little bit for specific industries. And then they think that they're going to reserve that capital and then come back into the marketplace and just be able to turn it back on. But they haven't been in front of people who stole their lunch. Yeah. So that's my opinion on what you should do to combat it.
And I listen, I love that approach. I absolutely hope you're dead on balls accurate. 2 things I'll say to that. Number 1, I look at that marketing thing as like a workout exercise thing. You never stop and go. You have to be on all the time. The consistency of being on all the time is what gets you in the best shape, and it's what also keeps you acquiring customers consistently, is not stop, start, but keep going, right? Fix, course correct, keep going, but don't stop, then start, then stop, then start. Always a bad thing. To your point earlier, I love the optimism, and I think you're right. I think that theory going into the new year, I do think people will go into the new year, as they always do, with a good frame of mind, right? With new year, new hope, maybe interest rates have settled out. However, I do think 2024, and I hope I'm dead wrong, is going to be one of the most, I think I said in the beginning, probably one of the scariest years of our lives. I've never seen more divide politically in America between the Trump haters and the Biden haters that I'm seeing right now, which lends us to, which is a perfect dovetail into why Kennedy, the independent, is probably more well-received than we've ever had an independent candidate received in history. Yeah. We're at a time right now where you've got a solution now, folks. Okay, if you hate Trump, you got a solution. If you hate Biden, you got a solution, right? You've got a guy that's brighter than both of them. You've got a guy that has way more track record than both of them combined when it comes to public health, environment, understanding war, understanding culture, understanding John F. Kennedy's nephew, Bobby Kennedy's son. I mean, this guy's seen more, done more, been involved in more than anybody could. I don't think anybody would argue with you.
Well, number one, I think he's
the pedigree is insane, but you got to listen. You can't just take the 10-minute soundbite from CNN that rigs the whole interview, and then, by the way, they go behind the scenes and they actually remove like 4 comments from the interview. You've got to listen to the 2-hour interviews. You've got to learn about this man. You've got to go and listen to the policies. This guy has specific, razor-sharp policies. You know what his first priority is? And it should always be the first priority. It's public health and defense. These are the things. Nothing else matters if we don't protect the integrity of the public health system. And nobody has done more for the environment than this 40-year environmental attorney who has taken down in the billions of dollars the likes of Monsanto and DuPont, these big companies that have ravaged our earth, ravaged our food system, and have forever toxic chemicals swimming through everything we do and say. He wants to unwind all that agency capture. Right? Not many people are talking like that, right? So if you take the time to do the research and you go, can we get a guy to come in here and actually fix the public health crisis? We are now the sickest, fattest, most inflamed nation on the planet. Can we get our next generation healthy first? Can we get America out of the forever wars that we're spending $1 billion a day on, which is on people's mind? And can we shut the damn border, now 5,000 illegal immigrants per day coming into America, as if America doesn't have enough problems already. If you just look at those 3 things, right, you've got to get a guy like this in place yesterday. So this is, and if that doesn't happen and we stay on the path we're on, all this great stuff we're talking about with business and consumer confidence, all this, I don't even know how we make another year at this pace, Aaron, let alone 5, right?
Well,
so it's dicey.
This ties back to the whole conversation we had in the beginning, where you're told how things should be and how you should think, and just do it this way because we'll take care of you and this is the best way to do it. And when I look at the United States, it's always very apparent to me, because I'm not American, that everybody's been convinced that you have to vote Republican or Democrat.
That's right.
There is no other option. There's Republican or there's Democrat. And even if you know in your heart and soul that your nominee is an idiot, you have to stay on the team. You have to bleed red. You have to bleed blue. It's insane. And so this is where you got to come back and challenge people to go back to that critical thinking and not being manipulated. If you believe that your nominee is the best person to run the country in this world, great, vote for them, vote in your party. But if you don't, step outside and look at the alternatives and say, you know what, I'm not going to get swept up in this whole, this whole process of I'm red or I'm blue or I'm this or that. I'm going to vote for this person because I believe this person is best. And they might be an independent. That's your freedom to do.
The independent thing doesn't usually make it. Now, there's a chance he doesn't even, I don't know if you know this, but you have to pay a lot of money. It's a game, Aaron. It's an industrial complex. I don't know. Most people are not going to know what I'm going to say. You have to pay a lot of money. You have to buy your way onto the ballot with money as a non-Republican Democrat candidate. Can you imagine? Right? Not hitting a certain threshold of popular votes, which I think is the most important thing. Let the people speak, right? By the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at this time, we're recording this in late December 2023, has the highest approval rating from just an overall popularity standpoint, like just overall approval. Who would you vote for now if you were going to vote? He's got 2 or 3 points above Trump and about 10 points above Biden right now.
Who was that?
10 months out.
Who was that reported by?
These are Rasmussen polls. These are huge American polls. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there right now. But CNN did, listen, when it gets to CNN, if CNN is reporting that, usually they're 2 years late to the party, right? So CNN is the one that goes, how are these numbers this big for an independent 11 months out? They're stunned, right? So the point is, there's never been a time in history where a third-party non-establishment candidate has been more well received than we're seeing right now. But you've got to understand why. And you've got to ask the questions and not listen to the CNN and MSNBC sound bites for 5 minutes. This guy's doing 2 and 3 hour podcasts, and you're learning about the human being. You're learning about the man. You're learning about the independent candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has no other motivation to be in this game, aside of maybe trying to complete the legacy of his dad who was shot and his uncle who was shot. And by the way, for those that don't care to look at an ounce of history, the exact platform that RFK Jr. is running on right now is the exact platform that JFK ran on, who was arguably the most popular president in American history for a very short time, by the way. He served like 2 years. But because of the policies he ran on, because he was a for-the-people candidate, because he went out of his way not to play the divide game and really was aggressive with solutions and bringing the country together, he was loved like no other. I've never seen people to this day talk about a president like they did about JFK. And if you do the research, you go, JFK wasn't even in office for 2 years. How did he get that much love? And Kennedy's running on the same platform. So if you buy the propaganda coming from CNN and MSNBC, Fox News will cover him. CNN and MSNBC won't, and he's a former Democrat. You've got to listen to the conversations with the human beings and go, we actually do now have a viable third-party candidate who is going to fix a lot of things that are broken, and it loops right back to your business because the amount of regulation, and most people don't see this, Aaron, because they're not in business. They're employees, which is fine, right? I look at regulation closely. We have never, ever, ever, I'm 50 years old. I've been a business owner for 25 years. We have never seen regulation like we're seeing in the current administration. They are involved in every single area of your life, and they just can't stop. I mean, from gas stoves to taxation to electric vehicles to medicine. I mean, go secure the border, get us out of these damn wars, and focus on infrastructure in the military. This is what government does. Leave all your identity politics for the stupid people and focus on making people's lives better, healthier, and safer.
I think the interesting thing for me, and I agree with a lot of what you just said right there, is if you start thinking critically, you got to ask yourself, why doesn't he just become a nominee of one of the parties?
You talk about RFK?
Yeah.
Well,
because
he was a nominee of one of the parties, Aaron. Remember, he was a Democrat, but the Democrat Party rigged the entire structure of the party. People don't know this as well, where they made it impossible for him to become the nominee. This is a high stakes game. This is the mafia, man. Nobody can come on my show and argue with me. I know what happened. The DNC said, you will never be the nominee because we're banning you from certain states. This is not a normal thing. This has never happened. The people who are still on the team, the blue Democrat, vote blue, you're clueless. Your party just completely rigged the entire election process to make RFK an invalidated candidate. He had to go independent. He didn't want to. This is fact.
And that's why I asked the question, because it's a thought that's happening in people's heads, is that both sides don't likely want him. And why don't they want him?
Because they want their own person on their party, of course, right?
Right. And also because he's a threat to the current system. He's a person
absolutely is an anti-establishment vocal threat to both sides, for sure.
And when you're asking yourself, do I want to vote for somebody who's a threat to the current system? Ask yourself, is the system currently set up for me to thrive?
Thank you.
No. So if you're a threat to the system, then really what you are is you're a champion for me.
But let me stop you right there. You just said something really smart. There aren't a lot of really smart people left. What you just said, it's not, this is 1 + 1 = 2, Aaron. This is not fancy arithmetic. You just said it in 20 seconds or less. Why would I not want to hear from the person who's going to undo the agency capture, undo the conflicts of interest, undo the establishment connections, undo the political sides and the parties to make my life better and to make my kids healthier and to protect our planet? How could you possibly stay the course and do what hasn't worked for probably the last 20 or 30 years? I don't think you have a choice. But that's me.
And I think that's what really appealed to people with Trump. I know when he first came out and I was watching.
Populist, right idea.
Right idea, right? Wrong guy.
Right idea. Right? I mean, love Trump or hate him. You could look at his policy side by side with Biden's, though. You just strip the personality. Take the personalities out. Take the last names away. Give me a white piece of paper. Trump policies down the left-hand side, Biden policies down the right-hand side. There's no argument. Trump policies didn't do everything right, but his policies are a lot of policies. There were no world wars. The border was closed. Inflation was low. We were energy independent. I mean, the list goes on. All of that is now undone.
So the reason that I brought it up is that because some people might think I've heard this story before.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I got, yes, potentially good policies, but I got the craziness and the decisiveness of Trump. So maybe I don't want to look at this option again. I want to go with something safer.
You now have a third option.
Now you have a third option, and you have somebody who has a track record of being intelligent, being non-divisive, being an attorney for the environment, writing 2 amazing books on health,
10.
and calling out the system. And even though Trump said, I'm gonna call it the system, who do you think is going to be more focused and follow through on resetting the system than somebody whose uncle and father were killed by the system?
Exactly. It's
right. The fact that he even is putting himself out there is dangerous for his own life.
Super dangerous, man. And he doesn't have to do it. And he was advised against doing it, but he's doing it because, and I follow him very closely. As you know, I've been a donor to his nonprofit charity called Children's Health Defense since it launched in 2018. It is a phenomenal organization that is only focused on the health of our children and the integrity of the environment, which these politicians right now have no idea what I just said right now. Everything's a bill or a subsidy. They have no clue. They're virtue signal all day, but they have no clue what they're talking about. Everything's a giant Hail Mary. He's been doing it in the trenches, suing the big boys, right? Fighting for the people for his whole life. And he said one day, you know what? I think I'm going to get in the ring because I can't watch my country erode anymore. And I was like, well, that says it all. I mean, you don't have to do it, but you can't watch this destruction anymore. I think that's a common sense approach. And you've got the pedigree to do it. I mean, it's really an interesting time. No, so closing out here as we get into the 2024 election, Biden won't be there. We know this. This is obvious. We just don't know who will be it. He's in very bad condition cognitively. It's a tough thing, right? I understand what the dementia cycle looks like because my dad just went through it. So don't kid yourself into thinking that Biden isn't already down the path of dementia. There's no possible way for 4 years. So who does that leave, right? Does Trump make it legally? I don't know. I think it's 50-50. I think they're going to – I think that whether you buy all the charges or not doesn't matter. The only skepticism I have is why were there 91 charges only after he decided he was running for president? Where were all these important 91 charges before he was running for president, right? So that becomes an immediate skepticism point for me. If the crimes were so big, like where were they in month 1 of the Biden administration? Oh, we were opening up the border back then. Sorry. Okay. Right. So you should have been suing him from day 1, but they waited, right, to see if he was going to run again, which means, the thing reeks of agenda. So let's assume he doesn't make it legally, which I actually think he might not, because I think that they would actually take a bullet to get Trump in jail, right? This is who they are. Remember what they did to RFK. They made it so he couldn't become the Democrat candidate. They will do anything. This is a cabal. So let's say Trump and Biden are off the ticket. Obviously, there's going to be somebody else who swoops in like Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. Fine, right? Democrats don't have a backup candidate. If they put Kamala Harris up there, the most unliked, unpopular VP in maybe world history, who can't even speak. It's always like she's on drugs or drunk or something when she speaks. It's phenomenal. But they got to find somebody, right? Maybe it's Newsom in California. Good luck running on that record. Worst state, damaged state you could ever think of. But does that put RFK on an island here? I mean, he's quietly...
I think there's an opening.
There is an opening. He's quietly staying the course as an independent, and his favorability rating is higher than both Biden and Trump. We don't even know if Biden and Trump will be on the ticket. And back to what you said, we've got a guy who can unwind so much political agency capture, corporate corruption, and stop the money grabs around the world, right? From COVID to climate to all this, to military-industrial complex. I mean, this is stuff that can completely change the game for America for the next 3 decades. This is huge. This is why I say 2024 is going to be a very tumultuous year. My concern is more world wars, because the Biden administration has no idea how to negotiate out of a war. They just keep funding wars. It makes no sense. Like, let's figure out how to not go to war instead of figuring out how to spend more money on war. It's not really that difficult, right? So if he can unwind all that, right, that's where prosperity in the middle class in health is recaptured, right? That's what needs to be front of mind in my view. And I don't know. I'm not sure who's seeing it. I'm not sure. Hopefully we can continue to, I'm sure we'll be very vocal about it in the next 10 months as we rebrand our podcast and we bring these topics to the table in 2024, is because I think that as Americans, you're going to get a very small window to make a dramatic change for the better. And my question is, will you take it, or will you keep doing what Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity? Voting the same way over and over again and expecting a different result. Will that be you? Because it isn't going to be me, because I'm voting differently, because I'm not going to expect the same result, right? But at the end of the day, listen, I'm going to preface that with, I will vote for any human being on the ticket that is not the Biden-Harris communist regime. I'm going to say that straight up, straight as day. I don't care if Mickey Mouse is on the opposing ticket. That's who I'm voting for. But Kennedy has to make the ticket. The thing I was going to say before, which I didn't, is you got to pay to play. I went off on a tangent right there. $15 million per state.
Oh, no, that can't be right.
Yes, it is, which is why he's raising money like a banshee right now, and he has to. But he doesn't need to be on every state's ballot because of the way the electorals work. He can be in like 30 states and win. So I don't know that they'll want to get on the ballot in every state. But listen, you're dealing with a lawyer here who's been in the game for a long time. He's already sued 3 states to try to get him off the ballot. This is who they are, Aaron. He had to sue 3 states. This is supposed to be a democracy, isn't it?
If that's
he had
true,
to sue 3 states to get on a ballot. You shouldn't have to sue anybody to get on a ballot. You know how you get on a ballot? You get on a ballot because you've met a popularity support of the people threshold. Not paying money and not having your current party rig the deck. Doesn't work that way, but that's how it's going right now. So he's got to get on the ballot before he can even be a candidate. Republican and Democrats are automatically on the ballot. Independents have to buy their way on, and they obviously have to have the voting power as well. Isn't that fascinating?
It's insane.
It's insane. It really is. So a lot happening, man. I'll wrap it there unless you have anything else to add. But economically, business-wise, politically, 2024 is going to be very, very interesting. I would say last piece of advice is you better be really, 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 really on your toes. I would say, a lot less TV and Netflix and a lot more reading and studying what's going on outside of the main media bubble, because there's a whole new world that's forming here. And with an independent push here, we've got a huge opportunity to maybe reshape the world for our kids in the next 10, 20, 30 years, which if it goes back to the way it was, I don't know how that will happen. So we'll see.
You might be living down here with me.
Well, that's why I say you're in like the safe little bubble over there, right? Man, oh man. I will say this, last thing I'll say before we wrap up. So as we get into 2024, we've said this before, this whole show is going to be rebranded. Nothing will change here. We'll show up same time, same place, but all of our social media channels and all of our real estate on the podcast platforms will be the new show name. I don't know if I want to reveal it yet because I don't know if we've nailed it as of yet. I think we're close, Aaron. I don't know if are we doing that, or is
Let's save it for the next show.
Let's save it for the next show. But we will rebrand the show. It'll be more of a big broad show where we will be talking about more of a blend of topics: fitness, family, health. Economics, politics, a lot of the topics we spoke about here today. But we will see you next week, same time, same place. I'm Andrew. That's Aaron. Happy holidays to everybody. We'll talk soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinePro.com. See you on the next episode.